Hey there, I'd like to introduce to you my first plugin I've made with VCV Rack. It was quite an experience, and before starting I'd like to say thank you to everyone on the Discord list, the development section of the Discord list. It really made it a lot easier for me to get this plugin out. Great resource, thank you so much. So up on the top left here you see the Dig Loop Runner Effector generator. And we're going to go through the functions of this and then have a little play around. So here's the effector generator. On the top you've got 5 preset buttons, and below that you've got the strength control for the effector. And then next to that you've got the delay control, which mostly controls regular delay, but that control can also have frequency effects. Then below that, you've got these 2 buttons for the magnitude and frequency of the additive part of the effector. And below that, you have the control for the magnitude and frequency for the subtractive part of the effector. Now, as you might expect, the subtractive part puts a notch in at the frequency you specify and the magnitude, and the additive part puts a pole or a peak in the frequency spectrum at the magnitude or using the magnitude and at the frequency you specify. And if you were to align the magnitudes and the frequencies on top of each other, they'd cancel each other out. Now, because of the nature of the effector, it doesn't normally produce just one peak in the frequency spectrum. It can produce many peaks, and it's a little bit different to what you might think, because it can actually latch onto frequencies that you play, which we'll see later in this demonstration. Finally, at the bottom, we have some generators. This section is the impulsive generator with a rate knob and the enable button, and a noise generator. You can also generate square signals and also tones. So we'll go through that soon. So let's get into some presets. I've got the regular VCV Rack setup, which you get when you first start it, and I've put my effector generator in place. We can see the scope and also the frequency spectrum here with the analyzer, and I've got that plugged into the return signal from the output. So let's get going. Let's listen to the percussive preset. So this percussive preset is an impulse with a ring after it because of the adder, and you can change the frequency here of that ring. So it started ringing because it got more sensitive as I reduced the frequency. So I bumped up the subtractor to remove some of that feedback so it didn't go into oscillation. You can play around with this and change the nature of that, the percussive component, and change the rate. Then let's go to another preset, the tone preset. This will generate tones. If you want to make it more pure, you can use the subtractor and tune into the resonant frequency, and it will reduce the harmonics and it will become more pure. You can also muck about with this in many ways by changing the frequency. So if I try and align it with the subtractor, you'll see it has a bit more trouble in generating the frequency. That's more of a pure tone really, isn't it? And then let's keep moving on. So now we've got an air effect, which as you might expect is mostly delay derived. If I play some noise, the noise sounds airy. Then we have the regular sort of delay effect, which I could and you can muck about with that. Anyway, you can have a lot of fun with that, with the additive section and the subtractive section. And finally, we have a latch, which I quite like. So the latcher, so you'll notice that the latcher, hang on, you'll notice the latcher latches onto the kind of a harmonic or a fundamental frequency of the note that you're playing, and that's pretty unique to this effector. It's hard to find that in other ones, although, mind you, I'm not as familiar with all of the plugins that you know, and there's probably ones out there that can do it. I'd love to discover them if you can lead me to them. And you can play around with the settings of the control knobs to make that latcher latch to either harmonics or to fundamental frequencies of the notes that you hit. And that is some of the examples of the setups you can get with this effector generator. You can get a lot more because it has so much versatility. I hope that you download it once I get it through the release, process it and test it and enjoy it. It only uses around 4% of the processing power, so it could be lower. I guess I could work on that. I'm hoping that doesn't affect the selection criterion for you. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to chatting with you online.